And with that being said, I do want to introduce Candace Newman, who is the CEO of Live Out Live. And we're partnering with Live Out Live this year with industry sessions to just really up the experience of these courses and bring in industry professionals for each discipline. So some of you who have been in a few of the other sessions may have met Candace already, but for those of you who haven't, it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Candace Newman.
Thanks so much, Skylar. Hello, everyone. I'm Candace Newman, the CEO and founder of Live Out Live. Live Out Live is inspired by my journey as a woman of color in the live concert business. I wanted to create more access for young people. And so I'm honored to collaborate with the Grammy Museum and with Skylar on industry sessions to bring some industry professionals who are peers and colleagues and people that I respect in this industry to come in and share with you guys an extension of what you guys are already learning in these sessions, which is a little bit more best practices and tips and a little bit more of a peep into their journey and how they became who they are, right? So we joined some songwriter sessions and some music business sessions, and today I have the honor to introduce Mousequake, who is joining us today to elaborate on the production conversation that you guys just had. And I have AD from the Live Out Live Board of Advisors here again to help guide that conversation because he was gracious enough to invite Mousequake to join us today. So I will pass it over to AD and Mousequake and allow them to introduce themselves and dive into the conversation so that you guys can enjoy hearing from them. What I will say is that if you guys want to drop some questions in the chat, just to allow the conversation to flow and for them to answer your questions in real time, feel free to do so. Besides that, enjoy, and I'm sure we'll be learning a lot from Mousequake, so thank you.
Thanks so much, Candace, and thanks to the Grammy Museum and Scholar back again for having us for these sessions. These very dope. I like to always say, like, I didn't have access to this at y'all guys' age or just at a school age anyways, or just learning. So this is cool to kind of learn from some industry professionals. But I'm AD. I'm founder of Chosen Musicians, where I do music supervision and sync licensing. Currently, the head of music licensing at Mass Appeal. And, I used to work at Universal, head of sync at SoundCloud. So that's kind of my space. But have a good friend to talk about some production today. Been knowing Mousequake for quite some time. We worked together on some short films, some other film projects, some TV shows before. Uh, he has a extensive list of people he worked with, from Nas to Lil Wayne to Scarface. One of my favorite mixing engineers in the game, and just want to give a warm welcome to Mousequake. How you
What
doing?
it do? What it do? Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. We got you loud and clear.
Hey, all right. I'm sorry. I'm looking kind of crazy because I was doing a film earlier and I forgot to turn it off. So
All good. It's a cool setup. I like the setup in the back.
thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man. So we want to start with Mousequake. You got an extensive career of, OG in the game. Now we can call you OG now. And and wanted to just want you to share a bit about your journey and your current things you do, like with production, music, so sound designs, engineering, things like that. Just tell us your story a little bit there. Start off.
Okay, well, my government name is Norman Barrett, but I've been affectionately called Mousequake. Before anybody asks about the name, I got the name. I've been nicknamed Mouse since I was like 5 years old because I was small. When in the military, and the Prince song Housequake came out, and I played it incessantly. And my roommate thought it was saying Mousequake, so he started calling me Mousequake, so the name stuck. I'm an audio engineer, music producer. I've been working professionally since I was 14 years old. I'll be 59 on my birthday. Um, I worked on a few projects. I worked on some Little Wayne stuff, Nas. We did the last Pimp C project. We did some Snarky Puppy and some other things. Um, Being a musician was what I wanted to do. I did not want to be an engineer. I'm not going to even lie. Um, the only reason I became an engineer is because I was sending off songs to record labels. They would come back sounding horrible. So I decided at 42 to go and actually get formal training for engineering. I graduated from SMU And then I went to Media Tech, did some certifications, and here we go. I'm where I am.
Got it. Yeah, man. So let's talk about that. What are some key experiences or decisions that helped you kind of shape your path? I know you said you didn't want to go down this route. So what is those like, what was that moment that you decided to go this route that you kind of, did you see something? Was it a project you working on? What was it about?
Well, what made me go? I submitted some songs to Motown for a group called Basic Black. I grew up with them, and when I submitted the songs, they was like, "Well, send me the stems." Okay, I sent them the stems, and the song came back terrible. And I was so upset that I told him to pull the song. Stupid move. But once I got the song back, I ran into a guy that was a teacher at Media Tech by the name of Tim Kimsey. Tim Kimsey, he did Pantera, Kirk Franklin, Erykah Badu, Eric Clapton, the works, and he kind of took a liking to me. So he started having me do karaoke songs for him on the weekends to supplement my income. As SME, college students, we always broke. Um, and then after I graduated, he came to me one day and said, "Hey man, I'm going to New Jersey. You're from New Jersey, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. I'm going to New Jersey to do a project this weekend. Would you like to go?" I said, "Sure will." So I got the plane ticket, went, walked in the studio, did my job. First thing I did was look around, nobody there. About an hour later, John Bon Jovi walks in. First pro job out of school, John Bon Jovi. That
Wow.
changed everything. That changed everything right there.
How was that session like? What was that about? Can you talk about it a little more? Or
Well, it was pretty interesting. They didn't know that I was like fresh out of school. They just knew I knew the music part. I was kind of fumbling a little bit on the engineering side because I had never done it to that magnitude before. But about 20 minutes in, I was good to go. After I got used to them being superstars and everything, I was like, let me do my job so I can make more money. And from that point on, I've been getting referrals without having to advertise for the past 30 years.
yeah, man, I don't even think I knew that story. Where was that at?
Yeah. It was, I never say anything about that. So,
Gotcha, gotcha.
but you my friend, so I can answer that question.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Now let's get down into this production stuff. That's what we're here to talk about. Like you've been in it for a while. You saw a lot of things from even the newer things we talked about with the Dolby stuff you've been working on as well.
Yeah.
Um, what the music industry is ever evolving. So what are some new trends? And I think those students are already hearing some technologies, or what are some listener preferences shaping the landscape that you see right now in production world?
Well, people are actually trying to go backwards, to be honest. They're getting a lot of musicians back, like when we did earlier in the day when I was younger, because a lot of the AI is taking away the feeling from the music, which is a rather interesting thing. But everybody's using a lot of plugins, a lot of VSTs. I had a young man come over yesterday and tried to sell me on Serum 2, which I already own Serum 2, but he was teaching me so much stuff that I could actually expound on it and use it on my next film project with some sound design stuff. But outside of that, man, it's the wild, wild west in the music business. You can do almost anything you want by yourself. You can do a whole orchestra in your house by yourself and not have a person in the room but you, which is a great thing because it cuts down that studio cost. Them $200 hour studios are tough.
Yeah. How would you like on a session like that? I know you have your setup at home as well. Like,
Hmm.
so what if somebody wants to get a setup like that? Like, where do you start? Like, if you're trying to record live instrumentation at your house, what are some key things? I mean, I go to every little detail, but like, what are some key things to kind of look out for in that kind of setup?
Well, you actually have to have a great mic selection because it's no good if you capture it terribly. Nothing is good if you capture it terribly. Outside of that, you gotta have a very good interface with a lot of inputs, I/O as we call it, input and output. And you have to have an extensive body of plugins to compensate for the room that you need, unless you go into a big studio hall where everything is in one room, but typically you have to record everything separately, and that's the task in it. But seeing that I came from the tape era, that I kind of got a working knowledge on how to get that done.
Gotcha. Okay. So got to have some good mics and just, some good interface for that. But
Yeah, that interface is really important. That really important.
gotcha. And what are you currently using as an interface right now?
Right now, I am using Audient Aurea. It's a
Uh-huh.
Dolby Atmos certified interface. I use that one now. I have a bunch of Antelope Audio. I have a Galaxy 64, a Zentor, and I also have a Focusrite.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's get back into the production side as well, continue on that path. So, you get tasked, working with a new artist, whether it be major or indie, and you trying to start a track or you just say, I'm creating ideas. Where do you begin when you're creating in your creative process? From what does that look like from you from a start to finish type thing when you
Well,
start?
yeah, when I start, whatever comes up, I try to sketch it out, try to get it to where it makes a little sense, and then after that, I shut it down. And then I pray. I wait for God to walk in the room. When God tells me what to do, then I can basically do it. And I'm I'm kind of think I'm blessed because typically when God gives it to me, I can hear it from the beginning to the end, so I don't have to fumble anymore. I can just go and formulate the song. And you can get inspiration from anything, like a baby crying, the dog barking in the street. Sometimes I walk outside and let the wind blow on my face and something comes. So you just never know. I don't really have a set, as they say, a ritual or whatever. I just do whatever God allows me to do.
Got you. What's your favorite genre to create? Like, what are you? If you are you more in R&B, hip hop, which I know you know it for, but if there's any genre that say, hey, listen, I love creating this world of a genre of a music, like that kind of that landscape.
I like jazz. To be
Okay.
the free form of jazz is really, it's like you can get 8 people in the room and everybody playing something other than what they're supposed to be playing, and it still feels good. So
Yeah.
I like jazz. I love jazz.
Do you
But
feel like
my staple is R&B and hip hop though.
yeah, of course, of course. I know that's what I was saying. Like,
Yeah.
with all the new jazz that's out there, because do you feel, in the jazz world, especially in the past in hip hop, that's where a lot of samples come from in that,
Mm-hmm.
or even some older R&B. Like, is there any world where people will sample newer songs like today? Like more, not sample to sample, but more so as a new, like there's a new jazz band out, or there's a new just something, a new sound that you say, oh, I want to sample that part and kind of do that. Are you seeing a lot of newer samples, not just some of the older stuff? Is that a thing?
I hear a lot of old Kenny G samples, a lot of the meters, a lot of Joe Sample. And I hear a lot of Grover Washington Jr. And now since the great Quincy Jones has left, with everybody sampling Quincy.
Gotcha. Is there anyone? Have you heard any of the newer artists being sampled, like any bands or anything like that, or that you hear, or is it more so they're still going back to what the older generation of music of samples more so than anything?
Yeah, a lot of them are going back, but I've heard like we sampled Mint Condition for the Pimp C album,
Okay.
and a lot of people are attempting to sample Prince, but that'll never get cleared.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
estate does not play. And I heard what's the group? Take Six. I
Okay.
heard some Take Six stuff. But they usually go back to like the 70s, 60s and the 70s. I think it's because of the feel, and it feels fuller, and you don't have to really tamper with it that much. And now they have stem separation. It's really easy. Now you could throw a song in the stem separator and get every little piece you want and just chop it up however you want.
Gotcha. How do you balance like staying true to your style when like experimenting with new sounds, like in your production techniques?
Well, I'm old. But what I do is I listen to everything that I can. I don't care what it is, any genre, and I try to mold what I hear into how I feel about it and how it make me feel. Like I always say, my motto, song is king. I don't really care about the ego thing, but staying close to who I am is pretty easy now that I have a specific way that I do things.
Gotcha. All right, so let's go back to some of these far as known artist sessions. Are there any stories like how was that working with Lil Wayne? I know, was there a story behind that? Like how did you get that? Who did what how did they reach out to you? What session were you in that kind of got that call? Like what was the story, and how was that process working?
Okay, the Wayne thing was pretty interesting. I was working at a studio in Arlington, Texas, and me and the studio owner had a disagreement the night before. The next morning, he calls me and tells me he's coming to get the keys to his office. I'm like, okay, cool. He brought all this stuff you see in here in boxes in the back of his truck and put it in my driveway, and just left. So I woke my sons up, took them inside. I said, hey, man, take all my stuff inside. I took a nap. I went to sleep. Best sleep I ever had. Um, and so while I was sleeping, I had a lot of phone calls because I had sessions there. Well, the last call I saw was the famous Mr. Lee from Rap A Lot. And he called, and so I called him back and said, hey, what's going on? He said, hey, man, I need to holler at you. Can you come by the house? I'm like, okay, cool. Which house? Because Lee had 4 houses. So he told me the house he was at. So I went to the house a couple of days later, and we started talking, and we went up to the studio, and he said, hit the space bar. I hit the space bar, and Pimp C comes screaming out of the speaker. So I stopped it. I said, hey, man, is this Pimp? He's like, yeah, I need you to help me mix this album. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go from no job to a job. And the first single was called Three-Way Freak. It had Lil Wayne, but we didn't have Lil Wayne on the record yet.
Yeah.
Nobody ever told me that Lil Wayne was going to be on a record. They just said mix the record. So as I'm mixing the record at a Dallas Sound Lab, about 2 o'clock in the morning, the door opens, and I'm just figuring, okay, that's Lee and the rest of the guys coming back. So I just kept working. 6 o'clock in the morning shows up. Lil Wayne has been in the studio for 4 hours, just sitting back there watching and doing his thing. He says, hey, OG, I'm ready to go. I turned around and looked. I was like, hold up. How long you been here? And he told me he went in, did his song. He did his verse in 2 takes. The first take was perfect. He just went back in and he wanted to do some touch-ups. After that, he came out. We talked for about an hour or two. He was gone. That's how Lil Wayne showed up.
Man, so he was just sitting there, you just, he catch the flow, and then he just walks in, and you right there, you just get to mix and kind of work with Lil Wayne like that. Just that simple.
Just that simple. I mean, I didn't, they knew he was in there, but I didn't. Usually when I'm working, I get kind of caught up, so I forget where I'm at. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and a side note to that, the next day we were working on another song, and they made us stay after the studio was closed because we had a VIP coming, and I didn't know who that was. So the VIP comes in, walks right in the door, goes straight in the booth, and you hear this clicking on the phone. Click, 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 click. And I'm like, man, who is this in the studio? So I clicked the light, and it was Drake. So
Wow.
we had Drake. So if you ever listen to that song, it's called True to the Game on Pimp C's last record. There's this really heavy robotic sound in the hook while the guy's scratching. That is Drake.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So how do you feel like I know you work a lot in the hip hop world. How do you feel like the landscape of hip hop, and production wise? Like where do you do you feel like has it evolved in a way that you wanted to see, or what do you want to see more out of hip hop production? Like how do you feel where it's at now and versus what you want to see in the future, or maintain in the production side of hip hop?
Yeah, where it is now, it's kind of simple. It's almost like when we first started in the 70s. It's just like a sample and some drums, really, or a loop of some sort. That doesn't really require a whole lot of creativity because you're just snatching somebody else's creativity and throwing some drums on it and maybe some chants or something. Um, I would love to see it where, instead of us sending out beat packs or, somebody sending a sample, that people get in the same room and create the music like we did before. And and since we have all this technology, the limitations are almost empty. You can actually, you could actually do a song now with 500 tracks in it. Back in the day, we can only use 8 or 16 or maybe 24, depending upon the size of the tape. And most MPCs only had 8 outs anyway, so we can only get 8 sounds in, or the sampler may have, say, 10 seconds of sample time. So we had to actually crunch it in to get it to where we wanted to go. But I hope in the future that the collaborative space gets a little bit wider, and you don't just collaborate with people that you would normally work with, just somebody out of, anybody, because you don't, while you're doing music, it's all about the feel of the room and what's in the room, and all that energy just turns into something.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think we are in a space where we do need more collaborative space. I think you can get a lot done in that kind of world, and it'd be some of these moments that even the fans want to see. So I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
agree to that, some of that stuff like that. Um, let's talk about the production work when it comes to music versus your composer work in film and TV. What are some key differences, or are there any differences that you see when you're scoring versus actually producing for an artist?
Well, when I'm producing for an artist, I try to actually make the music different from what they did before, but still fit them sonically and fit their attitude and their personality. And that sometimes is a tricky, slippery slope, because sometimes they come in with a bunch of beats, and some of them don't even usually fit what they're saying, or the words that they're saying don't fit the beat. That's a hard thing. Now with composing, it's different, because typically you get a script or you get pieces of the film that they want you to score something to. So you got to actually jump into the feeling of that scene. Like if it's a chase scene, it's got to be fast and aggressive. If it's the love making scene, it's got to be kind of slimy, grimy. And it's just a little. It's really the mindset, how you want to approach it. I mean, because if you're producing, you're actually scoring for the artist too. But if you're doing the film, you're actually doing it to something that's already there. So, some similarities, but some not.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I know it's working in that film world, that it's based on the director sometimes, and sometimes the artists give you a little more freedom, hey, what you got kind of thing, and we can kind
Yeah,
of go from there. So I
yeah.
definitely see that for sure, for sure. Um, in your career, it's always like, there's some ups and downs. There's never a perfect, like a nobody have no challenges. But what are some of your bigger challenges you had in production or in your career and your work, that you had to overcome, or how did you deal with that?
Oh yeah, man. One of the biggest things is keeping up with the technology, and how they used to say, all the older people used to call us crazy. Well, that crazy kind of helps, because it helps you meld. Like, for example, I was working with a 14-year-old artist, and this kid's a wonder kind. I was like, he could take it and pull it in so fast that and spit it back out, that all the older guys, we were kind of like, man, this kid is amazing. And he was teaching us how to do things. And the hardest part about that is you might get somebody in the room that doesn't want to listen. And I was always taught that you can learn something from everybody. And that's one of the hardest things right now in the music business, because a lot of people don't want to listen. Everybody has these particular, things they like to do, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. That's actually the biggest challenge, dealing with people, because this generation didn't grow up working with a lot of people in a song. It was just them and maybe another person. We grew up when there'd be 15 or 20 of us in the room, and we'd be working on the same song for a week. Now they can do a song in 4 or 5 hours and be done with the copy and paste action. So if that makes any sense.
No, no, I get that, because it's like, keeping up with technology, just any part of your any industry, it's always a thing. Like, with this whole AI thing, like
Oh yeah.
when that become legalized, it's really gonna be the wild, wild west, of you don't even
Woo.
know who's
Yeah.
gonna be doing what at that
Yeah.
point.
You won't even know if that's a real person.
Yeah. And so it's like,
I had to mix one of those songs last week. I thought it was a real person, but it was a AI generated female voice.
Well, let's talk about that. So, how did you not tell? Did they not tell you? Could you tell? Was it that good that you say, well, mate, is this a real person kind of thing, or how did that work out?
Well, I could tell because it was too pristine. You know,
Okay.
there were no anomalies or mistakes in it. The beauty about making music is the mistakes are pretty. That's what I think. You know, a mistake can be a greatest thing. Like you might play the wrong note or play a wrong chord and it fits. James Brown's a perfect example of that. James will play anything and it'll just start jamming. But AI is so sonically sound and there are no, the breath marks are perfect. The lyrical intent is perfect. The diction is perfect. You can tell pretty easily. But what they're doing is they're actually having somebody make the song
Hmm.
and then they're having AI regenerate the song to fit what the AI generated voice would do. It's almost criminal. It's almost criminal. I mean, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've definitely been hearing some things. They're getting close to that R&B too. I'm like, they a little bit too close for me.
Yeah, yeah, they're real close. They are real close.
I heard some stuff that sounded like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I was kind of blown away about it. I was like, wait, this is getting a little bit too close to what we
Yeah.
know. But yeah, that's gonna be an interesting journey for us. Some challenges that's in the future. But what are some of your bigger rewards in your career? Like you said, man, I really love that I did this kind of thing.
Well, one of my biggest thrills is being able to hear my stuff played over the radio. That's one of the biggest things. Streaming is one thing, but the radio is everywhere. And one of my biggest rewards was I had a friend that was working with an artist that I was like, man, if I ever get a chance to work with this artist, I'm gonna throw away everything. Well, he calls me one day and say, hey man, I'm in Dallas, we're working here. Can you come into the studio and help me with something? I'm like, sure, I can. So I got up, went up to the studio, and it was Aretha Franklin.
Wow,
Best thing ever. I had to catch myself from fanboying for about 2 hours. Every time I
just a
look
little
over,
bit.
like, I was like, oh, that's Aretha Franklin. And she was a one take Jake, bro. She didn't do a whole lot of singing.
Wow.
She would get it done in one take. If I think she did 3 takes the whole time I was there for 6 hours.
Wow. Like,
Yeah.
work with a seasoned artist like that versus new. Like, what is those differences? Like you saying she had one take. Do you think it's because of the level of practice she had, or what is it? Like, what do you think? How she able to come in and just get in and get out? Because there's a lot of people that sit in the studio and do line by line a lot of times nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, with the seasoned pros, man, they most of them have either worked it out before they got there, or they've been doing it for so long that it's second nature in their thought process. And a lot of the older artists, they don't like to do punch ins.
Mm.
They don't like it. They don't like the auto tune. If you say auto tune to a real singer, you might get jumped on. um, but the younger, they like to do this thing called, they like the vibe. I don't understand that, but it's what it is. They go in there, do one piece of line, then they'll go back and they'll come back and do another piece of line. It ends up taking 3 or 4 hours to get 16 bars or something if you're a rapper. And if you're a singer, the first thing they ask for is, do you have auto tune? So I already know I'm in for a long day. Most singers, they can tell you when they're out of key. Some of the younger singers, they don't know if they're out of key because they've been singing the same way. And if you suggest a key, then you might be called a hater, which is, which is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny, and but that's amazing. We're learning something that I've been knowing you for almost what 15 years now, and I ain't never heard that
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah, man.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, what are some artists like you say out there, newer artists that you say, man, I would love to work with one day? Like who are
Oh,
some of those names?
Fantasia's one.
Okay,
Um, Lucky Day is another one. I would love to work with Ari Lennox,
got you.
big time. Yeah,
Yeah,
big time Ari Lennox. I like her, and I would love to work with Victoria Monet.
got you. And I
Yeah.
asked that for a reason because I know you have your reasons why, but like, give me some similarities of why you would want to, because there's a reason why you saying I'm choosing. Is it something you're hearing from them? What is it about those artists?
I just like that. they actually sing the song like they mean it. And all their music feels like, feels like something like if a song feels like pain, it was some pain in it. So I like singers really. The rapper side, I kind of got to work with a lot of those that I really admire. The only one I didn't get a chance to work with was Biggie or Jay-Z. But I just love singers, man. If they can sing, I'm with it all day long. Cause I get caught up. Like I just recently worked on Selena Johnson's album, the Legacy album.
Okay.
And when she was singing, man, I cried a couple times because it's like you can feel it. Like it's like somebody threw a blanket over you and like just warm you. I don't know, man. It felt like a religious experience to say it like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like you hear these new artists, and I bring that up too because there are some artists. People always say, well, certain genres is dead or things like that. But you're hearing these nuances like that, and I think that's important to kind of establish. Like these some of the artists that you look at it say, hey, man, I would love to work with them this one day because you've been in the game for so long. You see those things in those artists. I think that's pretty important to kind of establish. Like, you know, I think the quality of the music is much most important. Question, going back to mixing a little bit.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of, I mean, I worked at SoundCloud and I heard a lot of those songs. They don't sound like they had not one mix on there. How important, how important do you think, because I think a lot of artists are just putting music out because it's available, it's you can literally upload it from your phone and then boom, you live.
Yeah,
Like, but they
yeah.
don't, so I'm hearing some, especially in hip hop, sometimes they don't get the mix. So how important do you feel it is to get that mix? Get a mix and master. I think that's important to talk about too.
Yeah. I think it's the most important part of the process, the mix, because you gotta think that the recorded song is gonna last forever. And if it's recorded properly and it's orally pleasing, it'll always play. Like we were just listening to Switch this morning. Switch's album is 46 years old.
Wow.
And it still sounds like it should be out right now. I think a lot of the young people are not getting the mix and the master portion because it's a little bit advantageous and cheaper to do it at home until they find out that they go somewhere and play it somewhere else around some seasoned professionals that it doesn't work. And then they want to. And it's kind of easy. You can take your laptop around, you can mix with your laptop, you can do it in headphones, and they have programs for that. But there is nothing that can beat the ears. Nothing can beat the ears.
Yeah. And so, 'cause I mean, you told me stories about some artists that, thought they could put the music out without a mix. And how did you, like, and then they already recorded it pretty bad. So is there any workaround? Like, how do you make a miracle into making their song sound better, coming to you?
Man, sometimes you just can't. Sometimes with technology and plugins, you can kind of add the bad sound that they already had to clean the bad sound out. And that is so labor intensive that it ain't even worth your time, really. Um, but I usually instruct them, I say, hey, man, what's your budget? Let me tell you what you need to go buy to get this, to get it to sound like this. Or I'll set up a template for them in their, DAW of choice so that they'll be able to get a cleaner sound. But man, the biggest culprit to bad sound right now, and I hope they're not on the line, but BandLab, terrible. Most of them are doing that stuff in BandLab, and they're doing it in programs that are really not made for professional work. I always tell them if you're trying to compete, you can't start at the bottom. You got to start in the middle and work your way up. The bottom, I mean, you can't do anything. So it's really hard to fix, as they say. Is it okay if I curse?
I mean, I don't know, Skylar, where we at? Nah.
Oh yeah, it's hard to polish a turd, man, and put glitter
Gotcha,
on it.
gotcha.
It's still gonna be a turd. You know what I'm saying? It's still gonna be a turd.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do we have any questions in the room right now for Mousequake, or any production questions right now before we get started on the next stuff? There's other questions that I have going on my end. Feel free.
Everybody's on mute, huh?
Hey, I'll jump in. I'm Marcus. I'm actually the instructor here. I've been able to spend a few weeks with all the students here. Mousequake, you mentioned just as far as you've been around for a while, and I'm not as polished as you are, but I just hit 41 back in November. So I've been around right around when Pro Tools was really getting really into studios and transitioning from the legacy tape and all of that stuff. But
Sound designer,
yeah,
sound
yeah.
designer 1 and 2.
Exactly. So now with Dolby Atmos, like we just literally touched on Dolby Atmos today. I see the Dolby Atmos render in your background or whatever. But out of all your years in the business, whether that was just when you were a musician to you being an engineer, what has been kind of the piece of technology that has like changed your way of thinking like throughout the years, regardless of what it is? It can be a plug-in software, mic, interface, whatever.
Yeah, two things. The interface to plug into the computer. Like you remember back in the day, we had the inbox. Noisy as hell, but we thought we had it going on. Yeah, I remember when Pro Tools first started, Sound Designer 1, Sound Designer 2. What a lot of people didn't realize is we were using the ASR 10 and the ASR X a lot. The software that we used for the ASR 10 turned out to be Logic. So we were already being primed.
Stuff, right?
Yep, eMagic. Yep, we were already being primed to use a computer. I think the computer actually revolutionized how we recorded. And then when they started coming out with the virtual software instruments, that was even better. Yeah, that because we used to kill an MPC in a SP1200. But I saw you at Studio One today. I use Studio One too. If you're trying to learn how to do Dolby Atmos, that is the best one to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is right there in front of you. Click one button, and you can just drive it in, do what you want to do. I love Studio One. I'm not a fan of the sound engine yet, but Studio One is the one. But yeah, man, that computer and the interface, biggest thing ever.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Mouse, talk about that that Dolby Atmos, because this is something that you just started in the last few years with added to your arsenal, right? Or you was telling
I started doing Dolby Atmos in 2018.
Gotcha. Right before the trend started. Now it's a whole thing where they're going back and remixing for Dolby to be released on that. Like, I don't know how many streaming platforms use Dolby now. I think everybody, or is it more so just Apple right now? I forgot who's being uploaded.
More so Apple.
Gotcha.
You can put it on Tidal, but it costs a little bit extra. But Apple is kind of strong arming everybody, tell them if they don't have a Dolby Atmos mix, it won't be on the playlist. And so it's just one of them things. But Dolby Atmos is probably one of the most innovative things for a producer or engineer, that you can actually just go and put stuff all over the place and just make it feel like a movie. Like recently when we did Selena Johnson's album in Dolby Atmos, and we did it at the Soul Asylum acoustic design firm studio at the lab, and it's a theater. So we mixed it in a theater, and there's no better feeling if you're an artist to go and hear yourself all over the room. There's no better feeling. So if he's teaching y'all Dolby Atmos, there is a reason for you to do that, because pretty soon that's all it's going to be. And get in while you can, and try to get it before the tariffs kick in. But yeah, Dolby Atmos is a wonderful thing, man. It's actually, I've actually had to mix some classic records. I did Bon V, I did an Al Green record. I did Make My Funk the P-Funk last week, and they sent me Prince's Let's Go Crazy Saturday. So, you already know what the song sounds like, what it feels like, but then you can start putting stuff all over the place. Like, just imagine having all your background singers singing from the left side, top, front, and the rear, and your music pushing you in the front. It's almost like being on a bandstand. It's the most for me, it's the most heavenly thing ever. As you could tell, I got speakers all over the place. So, it's one of the loveliest things ever for me, man. I came up on, I went to NAM with Solar Side. This is the big red speakers right here. And I ran into Brian from Dolby, and he invited us to Blackbird when they had just did the Blackbird Dolby room. And I was sprung after that. I went home and I had to convince my wife to let me spend some money because I had to have it. So yeah, it's one of the most amazing experiences ever to me.
So I actually mentioned to the students earlier today, like, they have to check out a studio and listen to the experience in the speakers, because it really just snaps and clicks once you hear it, and it's addictive. Like, once you hear it and hear some good Dolby mixes, because there's some bad ones too, but if you hear some really good Dolby mixes or whatever, you really get hooked. I think Ron had her hand up a moment ago, but I want to ask one question before we let her ask a question. For Dolby Atmos, how are you approaching new mixes now? Not mixes of old ones moving into Atmos, but like for me, when I'm starting to mix now, whether or not my deliverables is stereo or Dolby Atmos, I'm starting to mix in Atmos, and deriving my stereo mix out of that Atmos session. But how are you approaching your mixes these days for new content?
We're on the same page. I actually built me a template to where I can mix the stereo and the Dolby at the same time. So it gives me a little bit of leeway. So I get my, I get my stereo mix pretty quickly. And then I can actually just transfer the portions of the Atmos mix that I want to the Atmos side. The beauty of my aria is that I have profiles that I can actually change from stereo to 7.1 and 9.1 to stereo direct or 5.1, but just by pushing a button. I wonder if I could just drag let's see. You might not be able to see it from here, but that's not too visible. But
yeah, I think we can kind of see it there.
Yeah, you can actually, change it to whatever you want it to be. And you can monitor it live. And if you do it right, you can actually set up your ins and outs. So when you get your stereo mix down, you can actually just bounce once you get it, you can actually just take the files and drag them to the Dolby side. I can't even mix in stereo no more, to be honest with you. I don't even front.
It's hard.
It's hard, man. Because I always try to convince them, like, hey, man, let's just do it in both ways just in case. And recently I just did a song for PS the Rebels called Boomaye. It has a lot of African chants and stuff in it. And when I did it in Atmos, magic.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I think that's very important tool. I think the more newest tool, and especially in mixing, that it's starting to become a norm now. So I think, like, the more we talk about it, it's going to be definitely the standard going forward for sure. Because I know working at the labels, they require that on delivery sometimes to have on certain projects. Hey, we got to have a Atmos mix as well. So it's
yeah, and they'll kick it back too.
Yeah,
they'll kick it back real fast. Yeah, they'll tell you in a minute. Did you send us some deliverables? Because a lot of people think that, like you were saying earlier, Marcus, that those Dolby Atmos files are huge. They're like, if you get a good hard Dolby mix, it might be 4 gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I had one client, he was on 300, and he got kind of gypped on his Atmos mix. Like, the engineer told him he did an Atmos mix and sent him an MP3 to his phone. I said, hey man, there is no way that you have an Atmos mix with 4.3 megabytes. Just the metadata is a gigabyte on Atmos mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Ron, you had a question though? I see you over there.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Thank you so much, Mousequake and AD Johnson, for coming to speak with us and answer our questions. I had a question about first and foremost, mentioning how you said we got to start from the middle, equipment wise, and then build up. And I wanted to hear, I guess, what was your idea for somebody who is, maybe doesn't have the big studio, but wanting to start building it? What would that setup look like equipment wise?
Well, if it was me, the first thing I do is I go and buy Mac M4 while it's still $600. That's the first thing I would do. And I would try to max it out on the RAM if I could. Then I would get a quality interface, not like, I see a lot of people come in with a little Focusrite. Was that Scarlett?
Scarlett Solo.
Yeah, Solo.
I do.
They break pretty easy, so I would try to find a middle of the road, something like maybe jump up from the Scarlett, or try to find something like like the let me see, Antelope Tour, Zen Tour, a used one. They have great converters and they're pretty cheap now, and they have 32 ins and outs. So that would be good. You probably find one of those for about $500 now. Just know that you can't ever upgrade an Antelope. Their software is horrible. Or go and buy an Apollo, any Apollo. Any Apollo would do. Like I was on the beta team for the Volt. The Volt was something special. It just didn't get the props that it did. Plus, it wasn't expandable. Get a Volt. And then on the microphone side, I would try to find something that's a good clone of something that's expensive. Like, I have like maybe 6 or 7 microphones, and I use a Manley reference. I have a Warm Audio R87R. I have the Warm Audio 8000 that looks like the Sony, and something in the range so you don't go over budget, because as anybody in the music business can tell you, we get gear lust. We'll get gear lust, and luckily I have gear lust all the time, as you can tell. But my wife manages those particular purchases, so if she says it's out of budget, then I gotta cry like a baby to try to get it. Or most of the times I don't. But I wouldn't spend more than, if you spend, I'll say $1,500 on those 3 things, because you probably already got a computer, and if you're using a Mac, you can get Logic for $199. That's basically everything you need right there.
Can I give a little tip real quick? So
yes, sir.
As everyone here that's been with me for the last couple of weeks, you guys saw I got a ton of gear. I got rack stuff there. I got stuff in storage and all of that. I am worse than you. But how I cracked the code was early in my career, because like a lot of you all are young, early 20s and things like that. If you have a job or need a job, look at your local music store. I worked at Guitar Center for so many years, and that did a few different things for me. That put me in right in people's face that did music and audio and things like that. And then it also gave me discounts on gear, where I was literally there. And while I was there, I racked up on a lot of different gear, sometimes getting stuff directly from the manufacturers. Or even if you don't work at a music store, like just reach out to some of these vendors and stuff and let them know, hey, I'm a college student, or I'm getting into this and stuff like that. Sometimes you will be surprised what you can get back, from some of the companies. But, you use some of your contacts and stuff like that, like if you want to, work there versus working at a Starbucks or whatever and stuff, it puts you in where you need to be. And I was actually working at a retirement community when I left there. I was managing there. I left there because I was like, I need to be around people that are doing the things that I'm doing. I was like, I'm going to take this job over at Guitar Center and meet people. And that kind of helped me, boost my career and get in front of the people that I needed to be around,
Yeah, here's another tip.
Some discounts on gear.
Yep. Here's another tip too. Go to the pawn shop around the first week of the month. Okay. I know that sounds crazy, but people who need to pay bills pawn music equipment. Musicians are notorious for pawning music equipment.
Do it the first of every month.
First of every month. So the first 7 days, you're probably gonna go in there and see some stuff that you would go crazy. Like I have a let me show you. I have a rack full of ADATs. Can y'all see those over there? Can you see those?
Yes.
Can we see them?
I have a rack full of ADATs.
Oh wow.
I got every one of those ADATs for $25 a piece. And so what I do is I actually use them. Make sure I got my camera back. Make sure I use them for IO. You can't find the tapes, but for IO, you can go crazy. And since I bought that. I bought a drum set for $75. You know, so I always go to pawn shop, and usually ones that are by malls or by music studios.
Got it. Yeah, thank you so much because
Yeah.
I wanted to I think that a lot of us in here who are building our studios do not want to spend our money on the wrong things, and I have been
Oh yeah.
guilty of
But
that.
you're
Um
gonna do that. You're gonna do that anyway. So
I know
you're gonna
I'm
do
just
that.
trying to prevent the inevitable here. Especially I have a Tascam and an Audio Technica 2050, so I'm trying to like vet the equipment that I have already.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate that feedback on that. And I also had another question that I had written down, but I think Audrey in the chat had also mentioned it. Are there any recommended orgs that we should sign up to and certain networking events to get in contact with people to kind of, professionally grow in this field that you would
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah. What I would do, well, I would always go to open mics. Go to open mics. Because contrary to popular belief, a lot of record labels are in open mics. They just don't say anything. Go to like beat battles. Trust me, the beat battles are full of musicians that you can collaborate with, and they're full of people scouting talent.
Yeah,
And
I was living in
also,
Dallas. We had a whole bunch. You had some of the top people that work with Kanye, whoever was in those
yeah,
same beat battles. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, not to toot our own horn, but in Dallas, we won the world beat battle 5 years in a row.
for sure.
We won it. Yeah, we
So
won it 5 years in a row. We was knocking out seasoned producers that had multi-platinum records. We was knocking their heads off because they call us the Sound Collective. So, and we would go down there and just knock everybody off. Like we did a beat battle against Toronto with what's the guy's name? The guy who did Drake first, who did "You the Best" by Drake. We did, and we knocked them out the box. We beat them. Um, Beat battles, open mics, mixers, and just sometimes go to the studio and just take a tour of the studio. I know that sounds crazy, but
It
you can
doesn't,
go on.
Mouse, because I mentioned the
Yeah,
same thing. I mentioned
yeah,
go to a studio and check out, ask them to do a tour of their Atmos stuff. Like you'll be surprised. It doesn't sound
yeah,
crazy to me.
yeah. Because I went to Larrabee one time in L.A. working, and I had never been there before, and I noticed that the gate was bent. Like the go in gate. And I was like, man, what's up with the gate? Y'all gonna fix the gate? He said, no, Michael Jackson hits it every time he tries to drive. It's like, okay. So I go in, I sit down, and I'm with Lena Loy, and I hear this sound on the other side of the room. So I said, hey, can I walk down the hall and just look at the other room? They're like, sure. So they got an intern to walk me around, and Stevie Wonder was in the other room. So you just never know. You might run into somebody that, you know, you may fit them at the time. Another thing, I know Marcus has probably told you, but buy a flash drive and keep it in your pocket or your purse at all times.
okay.
Cause you never know. You might walk into a room and say, hey man, what you got? Here. Like, when I was working with Wayne had asked me, he said, oh gee, I need some new beats. You know anybody with new beats? I was like, yeah, let me make a couple calls. I called 5 people, only one was prepared. That one person got the money. Now he's on Wayne's production team. So you never know.
Yeah, so kind of carrying that digital portfolio with you, or not portfolio, but like, potential works to pitch to other people.
Oh yeah, you need to always be prepared because look, money don't wait for nobody, and opportunity is not gonna come and wait for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes so much sense. Thank you so much for.
Real quick, Ron. So a couple other organizations too. So I know everyone's kind of already tied into the Recording Academy right now, but Recording Academy does have Grammy U. So if you're a college student, sign up for Grammy U. If you're not and you have the proper credits, try to become a voting member or even associate of Recording Academy. They host a lot of events in the different major cities that they have chapters in. I attend a lot of the ones here in the DC area. And there's a ton around, and there's also online stuff. AES has the Audio Engineer Society, so if you're audio engineers, sign up for that. You can get white papers on different technology, and they have different events and stuff.
And a lot of free plugins.
A lot of free plugins. Some of the trade shows. I know Mousequake mentioned NAMM. NAMM has a winter NAMM and a summer NAMM. Go to those. That's when a lot of the music companies introduce new gears, so you can get in front of some of the manufacturers. NAB. I was actually supposed to be out in Vegas this past week. They had the National Association of Broadcast, where a lot of other vendors are there as well. So there's different like trade shows and stuff that you can go to connect with vendors, and there's other professionals that are going to they're walking these convention halls just like you would be. So
all the time.
In the film and TV world, NAB, a lot of people attend that. A lot of composers can attend that event. So you'll see a lot of across different mediums, not just that particular one. But yeah, I know our time is almost up here, but I had one more question for Mousequake, but did anybody else have any other like, hey, I need to get this question off kind of thing? Nah. Well, one more question, Mousequake, and then I'll let you kind of like go forth. But what would what piece of advice, what's that one thing you wish you would have known before entering into this music industry game, whatever we want to call it? Like, what advice you would give to these young students, going forward, like, some kind of like, so they can take away with them to kind of inspire them on this journey?
Well, the first, I know people always tell you never give up and all that. That's true. But you got to believe in yourself to the point where you feel like you're crazy. And, believing in yourself is one of the biggest things, the biggest proponents. And let me give you like 2 or 3 things. Believing in yourself. One, do not be afraid to be told that you suck, because that gives you an avenue to ask a question, to gain some knowledge, to get better. And the biggest thing is maintain your integrity and your character. Do not let a job or opportunity dictate how you are. Because believe me when I tell you, this business, people talk. And if you're a good person to work around, you're going to get way more work than a person that's uber talent and is an asshole.
Hey, that's
it.
That's some solid knowledge right there. That's it. Well, want to wrap this up. We want to get your information, like any socials or any that you. I know you have a podcast coming up too. Are you listening? You doing with music and stuff like that. So tell them how they can find you.
Well, all my social media is at MF Mousequake, MF MOUSEQUAKE, and no, MF does not stand for what you think it does. I'm doing a podcast. We're gearing up to do the podcast. It's going to be called Mousequake is Listening, where I have artists or singers or rappers, whomever, send in tracks to be listened to and critiqued by some of my friends. Like we have DOC coming, Jawborn, who did Erykah Badu's On and On, and we have D-Bots, who works on Fantasia. We have Black Metaphor, who did Boomaye by Rick Ross. We have Spud Brooklyn, who's the A&R to the stars. He gets people's deals. And a couple of other people we got coming in. But that should be kicking off sometime either later this month or the 1st of May. I'm just trying to get some clearances for their scheduling. A lot of these people they're uber busy. And AD, you're going to be one of my guests too. I like to have Marcus on there too, if he don't mind.
Oh yeah, we'll make that connection. Make sure we get Skylar and Candace. Make sure we have that information so we can plug everybody in.
Yeah, yes, sir. The email is going to be mousequakeislistening@gmail until we had to copyright the name. I have a love-hate relationship with Disney, so I have to always call when I'm using my name for something. So
Hey, you got to figure that out. Got to fight for your name now.
Yeah, yeah.
Fight that
I
mouth
just
though.
have to. I just have to let them know. You know, I just have to let them know I'm doing this because background on that, my name was a episode of a Mickey Mouse cartoon, so they thought I had took it from Mickey Mouse cartoon in the 1940s. I'd never seen it before in my life, but you know that's how it goes.
That mouse comes now, mess with you now.
Oh yeah, he coming with all ears too. The cease and desist letter was 15 pages, so.
Well, yeah. Well, Mousequake, we thank you. We thank Grammy Museum, Skylar, and Candace Live Out Live for having us. You know, it was a great talk. I hope everyone learned something. I definitely did. I didn't know. I've known this man for a long time. Some of the stuff I didn't know he knew. So this is great information for sure.
Thank you so much, AD. Thank you so much, Mousequake, for being our mentor for the day. I learned so much as well, and I'm certain that the students here did. So thank you so much for your time and for your service.
Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Yeah, so I look forward to connecting with you guys all next week. And thanks again, Skylar, for today.
Absolutely. Thank you all. And yeah, we'll make sure we connect you all. So thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week.
Marcus, thanks for letting us crash your course today.
Yeah, no problem. Glad you guys were able to join. And I did try to link with you on LinkedIn and stuff. So I'll definitely be in contact. We'd love to, collaborate on some things with you as well. So
sounds great. All right,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Y'all too.